Righto, we good to go?
It's week 30 of the golfing calendar, and we're all just a little bit sleep deprived here at Talk Birdie. After a fantastic British Open of the weekend, please welcome, live from the Australian Golf Centre, home of the PGA of Australia and Golf Australia, Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen.
You played one of the truly great performances here on Links Golf. How did that happen?
You know, I've always had self-belief that I could do something like this. It was just, you know, when it takes so much time, you know, it's hard not to let your mind falter. Like, you know, maybe I'm not winning again. I'm 36 years old. Game's getting younger. All these young guys coming out, you know, hit it a mile, and they're all ready to win. Like, when is it going to be my turn again? And it's been hard to deal with. I mean, I think someone mentioned that I've had more top tens than anyone since 2017. So that's a lot of times, like, where you get done and you're like, damn it, man. Like, I had that one. It just didn't happen for whatever reason. So, to come out and put a performance like that together, like start to finish, you know, just had a lot of control. I don't know why this week, but I'm very thankful that it was this week.
So that's the voice of the champion golfer of 2023, Brian Harman. Nick, good to see you. I want to talk to you about banana skin starts because he had two of them on the weekend with big leads. How are you?
I'm well. But banana skin start, I've never heard of that. Is this
what
sort of term is it? Is this footy?
It is a footy. You can get banana skin games in football. Yeah, a game where you're going to slip up. Brian Harman had a 4-shot lead on Saturday or a 5-shot lead on Sunday, or the other way around. 5 shots and 6 shots.
Yeah.
Whatever he had. The last thing he wanted to do was make 2 bogeys before he made any birdies. And he did it twice. On Saturday, he bogeyed 1 and 4. And on Sunday, he pars 1, bogeys 2, and then bogeys the par 5 fifth hole. I mean, if you were going to doubt yourself or if you were going to slip up, they're the 2 starts you can't afford to have. And, you know, we've spoken about this before. How often do big leads get whittled away to just 1 shot or get all the way back to even? It happens all the time, but it didn't happen to this bloke, even with those 2 banana skin starts.
Yeah, it was, through the Aussie summer, we saw it, didn't we? Yeah. You could have a 7-8 shot lead and all of a sudden it's 1 with 2 holes to go.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting it on that Saturday. As you said, he got off to that rough start with a bogey on the first, bogey on the fourth, par 5. But in his press conference, I don't know if you saw it afterwards or it's been out on social media, someone in the crowd has yelled out to him, "You don't have the stones for this, Harman." How was that accent?
I love the accent. What were we actually saying there? Because we don't have subtitles.
Yeah. You don't have the stones for this or something like that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Was the comment. And that actually snapped him back into, right, hang on, I've got to really lock in and focus here. And that turned it around for him on that Saturday. He didn't make another bogey. He made birdie on 5 straight away. Ended up making 3 more after that and ended up shooting, what did he shoot, 2 under, I think? Yeah, he got to 12 under.
He shot 69 on Saturday.
That's right. And then Sunday going out, the weather, okay, number one, I was actually saying, how good's this? Because the Ashes is on and and the cricket's going to be saved. Keep raining.
That's right. It is nice to see players playing different conditions.
Yeah.
You know, the greens were never going to get flooded, so it was always going to play.
No.
And I do have interest watching how people manage their wet weather stuff. But you're in a better position than me because I was the banana skin shocker. If I got off to a bad start, then I was gone.
Really?
Yeah,
banana
just mentally gone straight after that. I would think the worst. But you never seemed to. You know, you kept on just cashing big checks, Nick, your whole career, no matter what sort of a start you got off to.
Where did they all go? Yeah. And that's the key to performing at the highest level is to remind yourself, okay, hang on, it's 1 shot at a time. It's that old cliche. Yeah. We speak about it all the time. Golf is 1 shot at a time. Stay in the present moment. It's so boring, but it works. And I think the confidence Harman got from the way he started the day before and how he was able to bring it back. And then he started in a similar fashion. He hit, a bogey on the first few holes was not out of the ordinary. Everyone was doing it. That first hole completely changed.
Yeah.
The fairway bunkers, like Minwoo Lee, he was carrying all of those bunkers the first couple of days.
Comfortably.
on the Sunday, he was about 20 metres short. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, this golf course is playing completely different. So Harman had his chance. He bogeyed, what did he bogey? He bogeyed
Which
2.
day?
No, this is on the final day.
Two in the par
4.
5. Two in the par 5. He made a 6.
The 5th hole. He had an unplayable. That's right. He blocked his drive, and he got a little bit lucky with his shot after the drop to actually miss the bunker, which I think Cameron Young might have flirted with as well.
That's right.
So, but he then backed it up with clutch putts on the next 2 holes. Birdied 6, birdied 7, and from length, 20-footer and a 30-footer, and it was like, wow, this guy, game over almost. I mean, it wasn't, but... Yeah.
Did you see the putting stat that he had for the week? I always
inside 10 feet?
Inside 10 feet, he had 60 of them, and he made 59. Now, a lot of those are little ones, right? A lot of those are little 2-footers. So let's say half of them are 30. Right? So 30 of them, he's probably got 2.5 feet and in. The rest, to only miss one from inside 10 feet for the whole week. You know, obviously, he's been a brilliant player his whole life. You know, he had a great amateur pedigree. He played in the Walker Cup twice. The NCAA champ there at one stage. So he's always been a very good player. I saw a stat during the week, and well done again to Golf Channel. I love that show afterwards, you know, live from the golf, from the Open. He's had the most top 10s in the last 6 years without winning of any player on that PGA Tour. And let's face it, I mean, if they're not the best players in the world, it's pretty close to it. That if you're playing on the PGA Tour, you're one of the best. So he'd owned that one too. He hadn't won for a while. He's won twice. But listening to him talk, you know, like we did at the top of the program, factoring all that in, and the 2 banana skin starts on Saturday and Sunday, it was a mighty, mighty win. Yeah,
it was. Every time he looked as though he was slipping, and Straka got within 3 at one point. I think Rahm got within 3. Yeah. He would just nail a putt for birdie. Yeah. It was so impressive. Yeah. What was his university? University of Georgia, which is the Bulldogs, right? So
I think that's right.
Very, very aptly named in his case, because he is an absolute bulldog, this guy, and a wonderful competitor. And people were talking about he was a short-hitting left-handed. He's not short. He averages 294 yards off the tee. That's not short.
Yeah,
that's
you are much shorter.
I'm shorter. I'm about 20 behind him.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's about 5 yards behind the tour average. They're around 299, 300 yards these days. But the putting stat that I saw was after the third day, he was 44 from 44 inside 10 feet. And I think 33 from 33 within 5 feet. So he'd had 11 putts from 5 to 10 feet that he'd made. And then going into Sunday, he finally missed one on the 13th, I think, for par, which was he had 55 in a row inside 10 feet. So when you put on a putting display like that, but he was at least 2 strokes better than the next person putting-wise for the week. His tee to green was, you know, he was top 10, top 20, something like that. But, add all that up. And the composure he had, he also had a great man on his bag, Scotty Tway, who's Bob Tway's brother.
Yes.
Bob is 1986 when he holed the bunker shot to beat
on the
Norman.
72nd hole. Yeah.
So Scott's his brother, lovely guy. I've known Scott for a long time when I was over there.
I had no idea he was a caddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Bob had a son who plays okay. You know, I think he's won a tournament somewhere along the line. But I didn't realise Bob's brother was a tour caddy.
Tour caddy, yeah.
I had no idea.
Been out there a long time too, and when you see Harman standing next to him, it's the long and the short of it. And at the presentation, it was quite funny because the amateur golfer, what is he, 6'8"? Did you see him?
6'8", yeah.
So start of the week, how was his opening round, by the way?
Well, the only amateur to make the cut, shot the 5 under, and then I stupidly, because I'd been following him, I stupidly was telling people on radio that it's not far-fetched. If you get $81, which he was paying after round 1, that he could win. He ended up coming next to last, didn't he?
Made the cut on the number.
Yeah. But he was almost Rod Pampling. Rod Pampling in '99, I have to go back to the one I played in all the time. Rod Pampling led the tournament after round 1. He was the only player under par. I think after round 1, shot 70 at Carnoustie and then missed the cut with, I think he shot 86.
Yeah.
I think I shot 86 in the second round as well. It wasn't hard to do on that particular golf course. But my God, to see that big kid fall away the way he did, I mean, he ended up winning the best amateur.
He had a good time, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Did you see him on the 17th?
I did. I was watching that.
Well, let's tell people what happened. So it was a bit like the party hole. And he was egging he wanted some noise. You know what they do at the first hole of the Ryder Cup and things like that. He's got his arms in the air. He's flapping away, wants them to noise. What do you reckon the R&A would say?
I have a feeling they might have pulled him a bit aside in the clubhouse a little later and said, what was his first name? Was it Christo? Christo. Next year when you're playing, because I'm assuming he gets an invite back being the leading amateur.
Yeah, I reckon he must.
He probably would. Maybe don't go down that road again where you're going to incite the crowd a little bit.
Well, I watched him a month ago win the Amateur Championship, which is the British Amateur. He didn't miss a shot.
Really?
He didn't miss a shot, and he's been killing it on the East Coast in college golf as well. Hasn't been missing shots, so I stupidly thought he might be half a chance.
They showed a still shot of his impact with the driver, and the knee bend is incredible, obviously.
Yeah.
But he can only use a 46-inch driver rather than because he's 6'8".
Yes.
But there's a limit on how long the driver can be now.
These days, that's right. He's at 46.5.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
okay.
He only had to take half an inch off. Yeah, he only had to take half.
I would have thought he'd had at least 3 more inches on there. So. But anyway, it was a great week for him, and he had a lot of fun. But that weather, I love seeing that sort of a thing. You know, when the weather comes in, that's when you know who the real pros are and how many towels they've got in the bag. The caddies work overtime. They really work their butts off.
How good was Wilbur in the wet? Because it's always the mark of a very, very good caddy. I mean, a lot of the time, you know, I had friends on the bag, and if it rained, it was a disaster. You know, you basically have to do the wet weather work for them. But every once in a while, you'd play with particularly the Europeans, the European caddies or the English caddies. My God, did they make your life much, much easier? And just keeping the grips dry, keeping the towels dry, putting 3 gloves underneath the umbrella.
Yes.
Well, I reckon was one of the greatest tricks I've ever seen.
Gloves, towels, they put everything up there. And I remember always finishing a day and I'd feel a little wet and everything. Wilbur was absolutely soaked, but the clubs were always dry and my hands were dry. And the hands, that's the most important thing. You've got to keep those hands and those grips dry, and he was the best at it.
Yeah, and you got to look after him too. You know, when it's his turn, this is an early masterclass. All right, it's not worthy of a full blown.
It's not the masterclass.
No, it's a nice early one. But if you do have a caddy, let's say you're playing pennant, where most people who might be listening to this might have a caddy. If it is raining, you've got to help them, because they've got to still clean the clubs a little bit normally. But what you do in this case is you let them hold the umbrella and you do all the cleaning. And you make sure. And then the best bit is you take the umbrella, let them get wet. They've got to get wet. If your caddy is not drenched at the end of the day, you've done something stupid. Yes. You've got to revel in his wetness.
They're not a good caddy if they're dry at the end of a rainy day. They have to be soaked. Did you see the local guy, Matthew Jordan? What a great story he was.
Fantastic. Apparently he's been playing reasonably well. You know, when they built it up on day one, because we all, you know, you and I were super keen to watch it, so we're watching the first hit at 3:30 on Fox Sports. Thanks again, Fox Sports, for putting it on. Fantastic. I had the impression that he was new to the pro game, but he's been out there a little bit and he's been playing pretty well. But, you know, to see him getting looked after with the crowd and playing some good golf, I love that stuff. Yeah,
and you could see the nerves, you know, in his face, I think, on that opening. He hit the opening tee shot, first tee shot of the golf tournament, and he ended up finishing tied 10th with, who was it, Homer and Tommy Fleetwood. Tied 10th. He birdied the last for a nice top 10. He picked up about $310,000, so that goes in the kitty. Because he still lives at home with his mum and dad, who live around the corner in Hoylake.
Yeah. Did you see, I think top 31 made $100,000. Got 6 figures in this tournament. Yeah, it sounds
about right. I think it was a $16 million tournament or something like that. But
and the purse has doubled in the last, 10 years or something? I saw an article.
The 17th hole you spoke about earlier with Christo. Yeah. What did you think of it? The par 3, because that was all the rage going into the tournament. We obviously saw Travis Smythe got the hole in one. Yeah, that was a great thrill for him.
Well, I think the soft conditions sport the fun for the R&A. I think they wanted to tap dance on somebody's grave.
Yeah,
I really believe that. The hole looked nothing like the rest of the golf course. You know, had all the bunkers leading all the way up. It was up in the hill.
It was a little too severe around the greens.
I know what they were doing. And I get it. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Royal Liverpool go back to the old way. You know, is the old hole still there, or did they build that hole on top of the old hole? Or
they built it on top. So where the tee is where the green used to be, and where the green is, the tee was.
Right.
So
well,
it's going to stay this way.
It's got to stay that way, but it looks nothing like the rest of the golf.
I think they either need to just sink the green a little, or raise the surrounds a bit, one or the other. It just was too severe in some cases, because we saw Lucas Herbert's round come apart in the first day, didn't we?
Yeah. And they wanted more of that.
Well, Well, they got it with Fleetwood on the final day. He made triple.
Did he make a triple?
Yeah.
To drop right out. I only saw a farewell tweet, and he wasn't happy.
No,
he was disappointed. Just while we're talking about the golf course, I've got to say that the older the golf course, one of the reasons I like them better is because the smaller the greens.
Mm-hmm.
And when all these golf courses were built over 100 years ago, and I'm talking about all of them, the ones here in Australia, the ones we see in America, and definitely the ones that are on the rotation in Britain, the green size is just right. It's just better golf. You don't see the big elephants that are required to make greens harder when the modern greens are, they're built with. And the reason is these days we've got the money and we've got the equipment and we've got everything that is required to make these big, ugly, rotten-looking greens. and the example I will use to demonstrate is Huntingdale, the Australian Masters. Now, once upon a time, before it was untouched, Huntingdale, it wasn't the best golf course in the world, but it had a bit of soul, and the players loved it. And there's been a little bit when Bradley Hughes won his first Masters this week on Twitter. His winning score was only...
You were on there as well.
Yeah,
you were making him wait for that putt, weren't you?
I did. I should have got 2-shot penalty for the length of time I was taking over that last putt.
Gee, the hair looked good though.
Well, thank you. Can I, before I go on, I must tell you and people who saw that on Twitter, the reason I was really wanting to make that putt was because all of my bonuses were staggered. So top 5 finishes were worth double the amount that top 10 finishes were worth.
Nice. So
I was wearing a Microsoft hat, and it was a $5,000 bonus for a top 10 and a $10,000 bonus for a top 5.
Oof.
And the same with Schweppes. So I had $10,000 bonuses for top 5s and 5 for top 10s. So that putt, I had to hole it. It was the first time I looked at the scoreboard. That putt was the finish solo 5th.
Wow.
If I missed that putt, it was a huge drop in cash.
You took a very, very long time.
Yeah, and the best one, back at thanks, Dan.
Oh,
So I'm glad you noticed. The biggest one was Titleist. Titleist, it was 10 back in those days. So it's 1992 or 1993. I've forgotten. Back in those days, it was a $10,000 US bonus. US.
Wow.
For top 5 and 5,000 top 10s.
That's probably more than what you made in the tournament.
Well, in the end, I only made $30,000 for finishing tied 5th. I made $85,000 for the week, all on bonuses. But that putt, that putt, there was a lot riding on that putt. I reckon there was probably, it was a $30,000 putt. That's why it took so long.
Fair enough.
Anyway, my point being that back in those days, I think 10, 12, maybe a 15 under would win the Australian Masters. That was it. Then they went crazy with the redesign. And one of the things they did, they wanted more pin placements, which was a catchphrase there for a little while of all designers.
You only need 4.
You only need 4. That is exactly right, Nick. And they made these greens so big. From that point forward, any pro can 2-putt from anywhere. Once you find, if you hit the ball in the rough, once upon a time, you used to lose control of that ball hitting to small greens, like we saw all week at Hoylake. But when the big greens come into play, pros can control their ball pretty well out of rough. And when the greens are so big, you only have to knock it on the front edge. Even the pins at the back, we can 2-putt most of the time if you're sharp. And the winning score at Huntingdale went from 12, 13 under par most years to 22, 23, 24 under par, because it became quite difficult to make bogeys if you were on your game.
Yep. Now,
So-
to your point, Royal Liverpool had it perfectly. So
Perfect.
even the ones that were bigger, they had these runoffs would actually make them play smaller.
Yeah.
So they had the combination of the large and the small, and it's just a wonderfully designed golf course, and it tested at every facet of your game. I think
Yeah.
length was important on certain shots. I actually really enjoyed the internal OBs. They were fun on the 3rd and on 18. That 18th, that caused some havoc, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, why was it internal? Is it because it was a...
Well, it's inside the golf course.
But why is it like that when you play there socially, I wonder?
Yeah.
Or is it just because they didn't want people taking shortcuts down the right-hand side with a better angle in?
That's a permanent internal out of bounds for whenever you play socially or in a tournament. I've seen it there before.
Righto. So in my head, I imagine that there would have been some young fellas going going all the way down the right and just getting the advantage coming in from the right. And they're going, oh, we don't like this. Let's put the internal.
Well, I think it's possibly the range for the golf course because they had the range off site. But I have a feeling it could be the range and where they practice normally. Yeah, because they have to have space for the corporates and the hospitalities and things like that as well, obviously, during the tournament. So they couldn't have a range in there as well, which it probably normally is. I'm not exactly sure. But
how about Cameron Smith's eagle on the on round 2?
Needed birdie to make the cut.
Needed birdie to make the cut. And when you watch the drive, most people were hitting the little Healy ones down, the safe Healy one that starts left and cuts back. He didn't.
He just stood
went
up there.
Whoosh.
That was his best drive of the week.
Whoosh.
It's as though he's got a boatload of money in the bank and he doesn't care.
It's almost like that.
It was one of those swings.
And then what did he hit in? 4 iron, 5 iron, or something like that?
I think it was probably 5 or 6 iron.
That's a 600-yard hole.
Well, I was playing down and a bit firmer, obviously, on the first couple of days. But Rory, he had a bit of a run early.
Yes.
3 under. I think he birdied 3 through 5, 3, 4, 5, and I'm thinking, here we go.
Yes.
Unfortunately not. Okay.
No, I'm on board with you. I've watched him all week this week.
And you know what I was talking with the head and all that, with the putting.
The nose leads his shoulders.
Here's my other thing with Rory, and I hate to say this. Well, maybe I don't hate to, and I hate because it's his. It goes to his caddy, Harry.
Yeah.
He needs a different caddy. That's in my opinion. I think he needs someone like a Billy Foster, who's a bit more in your face and will give you a bit of tough love when you need it.
Yeah.
Basically,
I don't see any tough love.
There's
coming
nothing
from this kid.
coming from Harry.
No.
He's not reading any of his putts either. I don't think, and maybe someone could help him in that regard. But JP, who was on his bag when he won his 4 majors, he was brilliant. There's a famous line that JP told Rory during one of the majors that he won, or he was going through a bit of an ordinary stretch. He said, just remember you're Rory effing McIllroy.
Yeah.
And that really kicked him and made him man up a little bit and really take things on, and he went on to win the golf tournament. Yeah. And I don't see that coming from one of his best mates at the moment.
No, it's unnoticeable. And there's a quietness about this kid.
Yeah.
And that's good when things are going well.
Well, Rory spoke about he wants to feel comfortable out on the golf course, and but you need that extra killer instinct or something in those moments. You watch the great players when they have the chance to take it, they take it. The Tigers, the Brooks Koepkas, currently. Back in the day, it was Norman, it was Nicholas, and all those sorts of players. When they had their moment, they really went after it and grabbed it.
Yeah. Just back on Rory's putting, everyone's having a crack now. I saw Jonathan Yarwood, and if you're not following Jonathan Yarwood on Twitter, and you love your golf, you're not doing yourself any favours because he gives these wonderful grips. Well, he mentioned that the handle isn't pointing at the stomach for long enough, but I think he
through the stroke. Yeah,
I think what you say. Actually, he fixes it from the right end.
Yes,
he's fixing it from the other end. He's seeing what's happening at the other end. So he's saying the handle actually goes up on the way through, is up or down, one or the other.
Probably.
He also said his left arm is moving off his side.
Yes.
Which he doesn't like. And I'm a huge believer in that. If your left arm is moving off the side, I think you're putting incorrectly. That's what I think.
I think a while back he had some lessons off Dave Stockton, if you remember him, the putting guru, and he was very much about that back of the left hand to the hole. And I think that's probably where it came from, and maybe it's just continued on ever since.
That promotes it, but I'm about to fluff your pillows here.
Okay.
Because what I think you said, I think that is the core at what goes wrong. So when his nose, because he's looking with his other eye, when his nose goes, that drags his shoulders off plane as well. And then the shoulders off plane, the only thing you can do when the shoulders are going left is up with the hands, if you don't, and holding the club face open, which ends up making the handle go up.
Precisely.
And also the arm come off the rib cage.
He's spot on there.
So I love Jonathan. I love him.
He's great.
He's one of the best. He's one of the best in the whole world. But I reckon you've got the beginning of what happens, and he's got the end.
He's got the end. Yeah. You notice his arm and comes away. It separates and goes from there, as you say. The other person I think who I was watching and who hasn't made a putt in forever is Scotty Scheffler as well.
Yeah.
So I was watching.
Didn't he free up in the last round there for a little while?
He did, yeah.
Made it look easy.
But again, I think in his setup, I was watching him. I'm thinking, what's going on with this guy's stroke and everything? Because you get a camera angle from behind, and you think, well, that stroke looked okay. That one didn't. But then I started looking at his setup from side, and I think his right shoulder is a little high, and he's almost not open with his shoulders. But I think if he got under a little bit more and dropped that right shoulder lower, and feels as though he had a closed shoulders, I think that would help him release the putter head better through the ball, because from what I saw, he just kind of swiped a few and it was like, wow, okay.
There was a big trend there for a little while to level the shoulders, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. I'm not a real big
Crenshaw
believer in
never
that.
had level shoulders.
Brad Faxon never did either.
No. Yeah, so there was a bit of a trend there for a little while. Hey, we've got that much to get through, and we have whizzed through the time. I'll give you that one on the 9th green, and I'll see you on the 10th tee.
Like the podcast? Oh, maybe tell a friend. Drop them a text or share it on your socials. This is Talk Birdie to Me with Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen.
So get the driver out and let's get moving, because I want to talk about Jason Day. And Jason Day finishing second. And now he's got the career Grand Slam in seconds in the majors. But he's become only the 9th human ever to finish second in all 4 majors. Oh, that's a surprising number. I thought there might have been 25. Just 9.
Well, that sounds about right to me. I saw that stat come out, and some of the names were interesting. I know Louis Oosthuizen was one of them. Jack Nicklaus was another.
Yeah.
I don't think Tiger was on that list. I don't think. I'm not sure he's come runner up.
Because
because he usually wins them.
He usually wins.
He usually
That's
wins.
Right. No, you're right.
But the thing with Jack is he had, what did he have?
19, he had 18, 19 and 23 thirds.
There you go. I mean, how many runner-ups? 19 runner-ups, 23 thirds. That's incredible.
It is incredible.
Yeah, but Jason played beautiful golf throughout the week, and his short game was what really stood out. He didn't hit the ball exactly how we wanted, but who does for 4 days? And then in those conditions in the final round, he put on a bit of a short game clinic, I thought, putted beautifully and finished it off nice. It was a good solid week for him. And I think going into the week, he wasn't that comfortable with his game. So at the end, he said, yep, very, very happy with the week. Wasn't a win, but I don't think anyone was going to catch Brian, really.
Yeah, that's right. We spoke about this not long ago, and it was a case where a player who'd won a tournament had decided not to practice so much because of injury. Must have been was it the US Open winner from the girls? I think it might have been. Anyway, Jason's done the same thing. So Jason has been injury prone, and now he's not hitting as many balls. He was always a beautiful chipper and putter. When he got to number 1 in the world, when he was winning the USPGA and that stuff, he was magnificent. But it is interesting to see these players who get a little bit sore, stop trying to hurt themselves, focus a little bit more on what's under your roof back at home. He's got that amazing putting machine floor that he's got back in the
barn.
Back in the barn, his golf barn. You heard about these, Dan?
Yeah, I've seen the video. It's amazing.
It's just ridiculous, and the lights, the floor changes and the brakes change, and so do the lights that.
Well, when it snows for 6 months of the year there, you probably should have some sort of an indoor thing. But no, it was an impressive performance. The other impressive performance, by the way, was from the Fitzpatrick brothers. Did you see that?
Oh,
Matt Fitzpatrick and
I didn't
Alex.
think his brother. I thought his brother was just some kid.
No, he plays Challenge Tour.
I had
good player.
no idea.
Well, you saw him at the US Open when Matt won, behind celebrating.
Yes. That's huge.
It was a great week for him. Yeah, what did he finish? I think it was
up there.
-2 in the end. He beat Matt by 4, so I think -2 might have been 20th or something like that.
Matt by 4.
Yeah, so
that is superb.
he won the chocolates in the family.
Tell me about some of our other Australians and give us some more results too.
Yeah, so Cam Smith and Adam Scott tied for 33rd. Obviously, Cam gave the claret jug back at the start of the week, but
he was emotional.
He was.
Yeah, a bit teary.
He said to his mates, I'm going to get it back shortly in a few days, but unfortunately it wasn't to be.
Just on Karen Smith, I thought he was swinging better this year than he did the year he won it. You know, that loopy thing that he has at the top wasn't there as much this week, but he obviously didn't have the world record putting that he had the year before.
Yeah.
But the 5 birdies in a row, the putter was off the charts last year. But just interesting that I think he's swinging much better.
Yeah, I think for
12
him,
months down the track.
his golf swing is based around rhythm and the syncing
Yeah.
of the transition. And you're right. I think it looked as though he was swinging the club pretty well for the
Yeah.
most part.
And his little rehearsal, I could almost see it was like he was doing this rehearsal with not as much wrist break.
Mm.
I took a few pictures of it last year. At one stage, he'd get it into this nice spot, and then the swing would start. It would cross the line and almost touch his neck
Yes.
on the way down. And he won a British Open doing that. It was unique.
Could have made your rehearsal
Yeah.
list last week,
Yeah,
but
you
it
could
didn't.
have.
Yeah,
Bad
never mind.
Next time.
The other player who I'm sure was disappointed over the weekend was Minwoo Lee. He was tied fourth after 2 rounds and unfortunately faded on the weekend to shoot, I don't know what he shot in the end, but tied for 41st. So a bit disappointing. His sister Minji made an appearance too. She flew in for the weekend to go
Really?
watch her brother, because no brother and sister have ever won a major championship. So he was trying to get that record.
That'll
But
be a big deal when they tick that box. And I
and
think they will.
they will.
I think they will. And I think he was the only player who'd been in the top 20 after 54 holes in the last 3 majors, Minwoo Lee.
Wow.
So just those little milestones, just obviously feeling pretty comfy where he is.
No, he's checking them off. And then New Zealander Ryan Fox tied for 51st. He had an interesting, very up and down week.
Yeah.
He started off great on the Thursday, was 2 under through 5 and shot 78. I thought,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a made cut for the Kiwi anyway, so well done. But getting to some other results across the pond, they had the opposite event tournament, the Barracuda. I actually watched the playoff of that one. That was a fascinating one because there's a young guy called Ashkay Bhatia. Have you heard of him?
Oh, I've been watching him.
Turned
Another
pro.
left-hander.
Turned pro when he was 17. Didn't go to college.
Right.
And his dad said, look, I know you don't like studying. Why don't we just skip college? Let's just turn pro.
Well, that gamble has paid off,
yes.
sir.
He's 21 now, and he beat Patrick Rogers in a playoff, who hadn't won in 246 starts. So that's a tough one.
I wouldn't
for
mind,
Patrick.
what's his name again, SK? I think he needs to eat a few pizzas.
Yeah.
He's the skinniest winner I've ever seen on any tour anywhere.
His waist size, I don't know what it would be, but it's crazy.
26. I'll tell you what it is. It's a 26.
Is it? Oh, there you go. Jason Scrivener, who got a start because of the DP World Tour relationship there, he was tied for 28th. On the LPGA Tour, they had a team format event going, the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational. Best of the Aussies was Sarah Kemp and Canadian Alina Shark. They finished 8th.
That's nice.
Nice week for Sarah. Karis Davidson had a good week, tied 13th. And who else teamed up? Hannah Green and Sue Ove tied 26th. On the Epsom Tour, Gabby Ruffles, you'll be pleased to know, missed playoff by a shot. She finished 3rd.
2024 is going to be
It's going to be
great fun to
huge.
watch, Gabby.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other couple of nice round by Robin Choi in the final round. She finished tied 5th. Cassie Porter tied for 13th. Good to see her playing better as well. Corn Ferry Tour. This is just fascinating because I remember this golf course. If you shoot 16 under over 4 rounds, what do you think you would finish normally in a regular tournament?
In a regular tournament,
Yeah.
you should be finishing 10th.
10th, okay. Well, Curtis Luck had 16 under and he finished tied for 32nd.
It's just unbelievable.
I mean,
isn't
that's
it?
just ridiculous. But I've played the golf course and it's not easy, but it's not too difficult as well. But
What's the one tournament that you remember?
Yep.
Where you've made the cut, you've played pretty well, and you've gone backwards. So I've got one. I don't know where it was. It was a Nike Tour event. It was a 4 under cut, and I shot 5 under par after both rounds. So I'm playing in the weekend.
Yep.
And then I shot 68, 67, and I went further way down. I like wherever I was because the top 50 made the cut. So let's say I finished 40th. I shot those 2 scores and finished 48th. It was impossible.
That's a joke.
It was impossible.
Yeah. The Corn Ferry Tour. I mean, I remember one year, 2 weeks in a row, I had 5 under and 6 under, and I missed both cuts.
Yeah.
It was 6 and 7.
Outrageous.
But Pearson Cootie won that tournament by 2 strokes from his twin brother.
Oh, you're joking.
No.
I didn't know
His
that.
twin brother Parker, who finished tied for 2nd. Pearson, who's 37 minutes younger, he got the cheese. So there you go.
Are you joking? What a story. That's a big. That's going to get lost.
It will do.
That'll get lost in the British Open wash.
I find these things for you, Mark. It's
I'm
all
glad
good.
you do.
And then just more on the Aussie front, Steph Bunky on the LET Access Tour, tied for 3rd, and Kelsey Bennett tied for 6th. So that's
Where do you get all this
Steph's
stuff from?
That's
That's
off the
amazing.
PGA website.
Oh, okay.
PGA Australia. You got to look these things
Don't
up.
give your secrets away.
But that's a good result for Steph because she's trying to get a card over there in Europe.
What about your pink buddy making a hole in one one on 17.
Oh, I know.
That wasn't bad.
How good.
Well,
yeah.
he was about 10 over at the time, poor bugger, but still,
Wow.
it was nice. A
But-
1 at the British Open. Do you get anything? Because you get Crystal at the Masters, you get a little bit.
Yeah, you get crystal for eagles at the Masters. I never got any of that, unfortunately. Never made an eagle.
Oh,
But a hole in one, you should get something.
yeah.
Well, you get the honour on the next tee, so there you go.
It's time for some feedback, Dan. I'm glad you piped up. What do you got for us?
Okay, while you're talking the Open, Mick, who's a Virgin pilot, and so he was saying he's got to time his sleep for the
Mick.
Open.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
He said, well, with Brian Harman leading the final round of the Open last night, this is a couple of nights ago, at least I could go to bed early as there was no way I was going to watch him. I'm not a Harman fan.
No, well, he spends so much time over the ball, fiddling around, waggling away.
Mick feels about Harman like you do about Keegan.
Yeah, well, Keegan's different because Keegan's before he gets over the ball.
True.
This is what he does over the ball. It was.
Yeah.
I didn't want to watch in the end.
It was so hard, and I was counting the waggles. Did you
What'd you
say
get
they
up
had a waggle meter or something?
Yeah, I need a waggle
Yeah,
meter. They need that little.
Well, there
ding,
was
ding,
every
ding.
so often there was 7, sometimes there was 11.
Is that right?
Yeah, it did vary. That was the fascinating thing. And you know what? After the third round, they showed him hitting balls on the range. He would take 1 or 2, and that was it.
There you go.
And then on the golf course, he's taken 10 or 11. But it works for him.
What do you think causes it? Is it like a nervous tick, or is it like a Rafael Nadal sort of...
I might end up doing a masterclass. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to do a masterclass on over the ball. But there was one guy, Sergio Garcia, who had the same problem. But he doesn't do what Brian Harman does. And that was he would waggle while looking at the ball. And then he would look up at the target. And then because he wasn't moving, he would look back at the ball. And then he's got to start moving. And then he'd waggle again. And it became a vicious circle where he'd go around. And he was having 15 waggles before he could pull the trigger.
But if you watched Harman closely, because I was, because there was nothing else to watch, the last 3 looks became a sort of a normal one, a slightly quicker, and then just a glimpse. So there was actually a little routine in there with it. There was a routine.
Yeah.
It was just quite bizarre.
But he at least waggles while he's looking at the target.
Yeah.
So I give him no excuse for freezing up because he
Okay.
does it the right way. He just kept on doing it.
A message from Chris Payne who said, great fun podcast, guys. Very informative. Keep up the great work. Which is very nice.
Good on you,
Beautiful.
Chris.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.
We put a tweet up this week about how many countries this podcast is listened to. And there's about 60, 70, 80 countries around the world, which is really, really good.
It's very nice.
We've got 0 listeners in Latvia.
Oh, that's rubbish.
Oh.
None.
We need more.
None. So Tim McCullum has messaged us and he said, Tim McCullum has said, who would be Latvia's leading professional?
No, off the top of my head, I wouldn't know.
I couldn't tell.
Well, I looked it up.
you've done
looked
the
it up.
research. Good.
No, I don't know if these guys are still playing or girls are still playing.
Fire away.
And I don't know if I can pronounce them, but
Go on.
heard a bloke called Roberts Emanas.
No.
No.
Okay. He turned pro 2017. Don't know if he still is.
Okay.
Ingars Mattisons
Ningas.
turned
No.
pro in 2020.
No.
Okay.
No.
Anna Dianka Svanka.
Great name. Dianka Sivanka.
Oh, that'll be
How good would
awesome
that
on
be?
the TV.
On the tee.
Yeah.
Dianka Sivanka. She's in the bunker. Go on. Sorry.
It is a good name.
Yes.
What about Laura Jansen?
No, sorry.
No, not a sister, long lost relative of Lee Jansen.
No.
He won a couple. He went 2 US Opens.
2
Lee
US
Jansen?
Opens, yeah.
No, different spelling. And the last one that I could find, Krista Poisit.
Poisit. No.
No, sorry, I don't know
So-
of those
Oh.
Latvian golf pros.
I don't know if Tim that helps at all, but there's some who
Good
at
on
least
you,
were
Tim.
professional for a while. David Kutcher thought the masterclass last week excellent, great communication and relatable coaching.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. Thanks,
Which is
David.
good.
Very good.
And speaking of videos, Luke Thomas has written in and said, Nick, why are you putting right-handed? Now, I know you've talked about this a lot, but we get this sort of message a lot, so I feel we need to keep explaining
Sure.
why you're doing it.
Yep, left-handed too easy, so that's why. No,
That's true, folks.
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's
so
ridiculous.
for Luke, I used to use the broomstick putter for many years on tour. When they brought the anchoring ban in, I didn't like the unanchoring, so I started tinkering around with a short putter, and I must admit I was a little yippy left-handed short.
Really?
Little-
Heebie-jeebies or
little-
yips? Full-blown yips?
No, it was just heebie-jeebies.
Heebie-jeebies, right.
And I played 9 holes one day for a bit of fun right-handed and putted beautifully and thought, okay. But the more I think about it, I'm one hand, right hand. Right hand is my dominant hand, which I've spoken about before. And I think whatever your dominant hand, that is the way you should putt.
Putt. That's right. And for if you're new to the podcast, when Nick plays right-handed, his name is Nico Who,
Yes.
not Nico Hearn.
Actually, I might pop into Golf Australia and see if I can talk to him about getting that handicap.
You've actually got to do that.
You've been saying that for about 2 months now. You're actually going to do
I
anything
keep
about it?
forgetting.
Hey, it's time for our top 5.
All right, and in honour of the waggles of
Don't do it.
Brian Harman, these are my top 5 toughest players to watch over the ball.
Over the ball.
Over the ball. You mentioned Keegan before, but he's tough to watch before he gets into the ball.
Okay,
He has all these mannerisms going back and forth.
I've got 16 in my head right now.
So
I'm
my top
interested to hear
top
yours.
5. Number 7.
There's so many annoying players.
There is a few. Yeah, the top 5 this week. I'm sorry, you stretched yours out last week.
I know.
Actually, no, you had 2 tied. So I'm
Yeah,
going
I
to
know.
stretch out just a couple of honourable mentions. Our Australian Open winner last year, Adrian Moronk, he was a tough one because he would take that long backswing, and I thought he was going to hit it.
No, he took a full backswing.
Yeah.
A full backswing was his waggle.
I know. I've never seen that before.
Oh.
And I almost started talking, and anyway, it threw me off.
Drove me crazy.
Threw me off. Another player, and I know you're not a fan of John Rahm, the way he sets up because his hands are too close.
Yeah, I can't watch it. I keep thinking he's going to shank it.
Yeah, but John, I don't feel that with John, although he has socketed a couple.
Yes. He's
Jim,
so close. Those big thighs,
Yes.
they just look like they're going to get in the way.
yeah, and his head's almost outside the ball sometimes.
Yeah.
For me, Jim Furyk, the way his hands are almost his hands are actually between his legs at
Yeah.
setup. They disappear.
That was annoying.
But the way he swang, it was just completely his style, and it worked for him. But that was pretty tough to watch whenever you played with him because you were just waiting for that hosel rocket
What
every
number?
time.
What number are we up to?
That was 6 and 7, maybe. Okay, I'm going to go quickly on the next ones. Number 5 was Jason Duffner. That long, the waggles
The
he used
waggle
to take. Oh, it just used to drive me a bit nuts.
Yeah.
Number 4. This is an interesting one for me. And growing up, and if you watch the 1996 Masters, you'll see it kept going longer and longer. Was Greg Norman. Sometimes when he would get over the ball, he would put the club not behind the ball, but next to it.
Yeah.
And then he'd kind of look up at the target. The feet would start moving everywhere.
Yeah.
And he'd do that 3 or 4 times. And it was just like, come on, just hit it.
And he was milking the grip all the time.
Oh, you like the milking of the grip,
I don't
though.
like that.
You don't like it?
I'm not a
Okay.
big fan of milking the
Alright.
grip.
No. Anyway,
Ah,
so that's my number 4.
Yep.
Number 3, Brian Harman. We've already spoken
Yes,
about
good.
Brian.
I'm
Number
glad you found
2.
room for the Open champion.
Number 2, it's tough to watch Cantlay over the ball.
Yeah.
He has probably as many waggles as Harman, but at least Harman does it quickly.
Yeah.
Cantlay just does it at snail pace, and it takes forever.
It's no good.
Hard to watch. And number 1, who you mentioned before with the regrips, Sergio Garcia.
Oh, you found him.
I found him. I put him there number 1. He was he was playing the US Open. Was it Bethpage? And the New York crowd were going 21,
Yes.
22,
Yes.
23, counting off the regrips.
Oh, I'd love to get the audio of that. I would
Yeah.
love to find it somewhere.
But it must be online.
Yeah, it must be on.
Yeah, it
But
would be.
mate,
We'll have a
when we
look.
finish up, see if you can find it.
Anyway, that's my top 5, maybe top 7 for this week.
Righto, time for the masterclass. So, I'm going to do this week what you should do over the ball. And what you should do over the ball is exactly what you should do when you are practicing. Now, you made a really, really good point before, and I'm a believer in this. If you're down on the driving range and you have 1 look, 2 looks, and then you hit the ball, that's how you practice. So I would put this forward. Why would you practice one way and then under pressure do it totally differently? And if you're doing 2 looks on the driving range, or even if you're doing 1 look on the driving range, if you're doing 1 look on the driving range, it's not many looks, 1, but if you are, try playing with it. You know, you might free up. The other thing that I love about the players who are beautiful to watch over the ball, Ben Hogan was one of them. When you watch him on YouTube, the feet just tap lightly. There's light tapping of the feet. There's looking at the target and waggling while you're looking at the target. Seve Ballesteros, he was a non-waggler. He would just have the club dead still behind the ball, and so did his protege Jose Maria Lathabale. No waggles, but everything else moved. You know, their shoulders moved, their feet moved. It was almost like they were dancing before they would hit the ball, and they're not just dead still like a robot. So those things are very, very important. Light grip. Just a light grip. At some stage, if you read Peter Thompson's book as well, you've got to firm up that grip. It's normally when you get towards, but at the start, you're not gripping the club tightly. It gradually gets to the point where you make impact. So all those things are very important. So if you're having 15 looks, you're doing it wrong. If you're waggling while you're looking at the ball, you're doing it wrong. If you are having 15 waggles on the golf course but only 2 on the driving range, you're doing it wrong. So just fix that up for me, will you?
Love it.
Just before we wrap the show up, you mentioned Ben Hogan before.
Yeah.
Smartless, the podcast that you enjoy,
Yeah.
have got a TV show.
Yeah. I've been watching it.
Episode 1, in the plane, Jason Bateman was reading a book. Did you notice what book he was reading?
Don't tell me it was the 5 Modern Fundamentals of Golf.
It was the 5 Modern Fundamentals of Golf by Ben Hogan.
He loves golf, doesn't he?
He loves it. Yeah, he played in the AT&T Pro-Am this year, Pebble Beach.
Yeah. Well, the three of us love Smartless. We like
We
it.
do.
So if we ever do a podcast where we're doing an interview, I think in honour of Smartless, we should introduce like they do in Smartless.
Oh, yes.
So you won't know or I won't know.
I like that idea.
And then
Okay.
we will just read out what they've been doing and it sees how long it takes before you work out who it is.
Jeez.
All right.
Very good.
Jason Bateman's got us.
He
All right.
has.
He's got us.
All right.
See you next week.
Cheers, mate.
Oh, there it is. That's Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen's podcast, Talk Birdie to Me. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and you'll never miss an episode. And if you can share with a friend, well, that'll be awesome too. Talk Birdie to Me's executive producer is Dan Bradley at Kaizen Media. Sound design, Daryl Misson at loudzebra.com.